This is Business Therapy, where Diane Dye Hansen and Christine Salvo approach the human side of business. Get to work, get happy, and get ready to learn. Here we are. I'm Diane.
I'm Christine.
And this is Business Therapy. Good morning, everybody. Oh my gosh, I hope you had a great weekend. Today, we are talking about something that is becoming more and more common in business culture, and that is dealing with remote teams. Remote work is on the rise. It's actually kind of fun to think that you could wake up in the morning, reach, get a big stretch, reach for your computer, and you're in the office. But it comes with its own certain challenges. Also, when you're not working remote and you're working in an office, sometimes you have to deal with teams in other offices. Have you ever had that situation where you've had to deal with people who aren't necessarily in your area, Christine?
I have. I absolutely have. It's been challenging at times.
It is. It's incredibly challenging. So today we have Jeff with us. And Jeff is an electrical engineer who works for a large firm. And he was relocated to Nevada from, was it South Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. North, South, East, West. Okay, there's no East and West Carolina. So the relocation happened because why, Jeff?
It was a combination of things, really. I wanted to try a different industry that was similar to my old industry, and it was an opportunity that presented itself. Submitted my resume into my current supervisor. She thought it was a good resume, brought me over for an interview, and the combination of living near Lake Tahoe and all the outdoor activities here and my career desires, I felt that it was a good fit for moving over to Nevada. I've also learned that Nevada is the way to say it, not Nevada. I learned that really quick after
that's
going
a really
out.
good correction.
Pronunciations vary across the nation.
Exactly. To me, Nevada sounds like a Boston accent. That's where I'm actually from. So it made sense to me, but I was quickly corrected over probably a course of a week.
So I have a question on that. Was it, you see these bumper stickers here, and it's like, it's Nevada. Was that it? Was that like the click of like, I'm saying it wrong?
No, I haven't seen the bumper sticker, but I could totally
Just look
read
out
that.
for it now.
Yeah, I'll totally look for it.
Yeah.
The first time I was corrected on the pronunciation, I was actually in a remote position as the editor-in-chief of Getaway Reno Tahoe magazine. And no one knew, and now everyone knows because I'm saying it in public. I was living in Los Angeles at the time and writing a Reno Tahoe magazine. So I came up and did a radio appearance up the hill on a radio station, and I said Nevada. And you're not supposed to have dead air on the radio, but there was dead air on the radio. And, I think that's a good point about, remote teams is that sometimes we don't all speak the same language. You deal with people from India, you deal with people from Germany, you deal with people from East Coast, West Coast, Upper Midwest. We all have this different way of communicating. So Jeff, in dealing with, an outside teams in your job, like when you've had to communicate, what are some of the gaps, and maybe even some gaps that you see East Coast, West Coast?
So this new position is kind of unique compared to my other positions because everything was pretty much centralized in one location. So some of the things I've ran into in this position is a lot of our work has to be facilitated between different teams and different offices across Nevada. And part of that is you have to gain alignment between what priorities are most important between each functioning team, because what I think is important might not necessarily be as important for them and the other groups as well. So to facilitate a lot of that cross-disciplinary team activities, I rely on my supervisor sometimes. Ideally, I try to solve it myself rather than engage her because she's busy. She has a lot to do. But sometimes you just can't have I can't convince somebody to work on something without somebody else higher in the food chain reaching out to the other group and saying, we really need to get this done because it's important for this reason.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily even just how things are said, but even how things are done. Like I know on the East Coast, things move a lot faster than they move in, say, I don't know, Carson City, Nevada. And you have the time difference too. So the pace of work combined with priorities, does it ever create any frustration for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely been frustrated not getting any progress on certain activities. Like sometimes I'll just rely on email because some people are actually good at responding to email. When that doesn't work, I'll actually call them a couple times, and if that doesn't work, like worst case, you can always drive to that location if it's within reason to actually have a face-to-face meeting. And if that doesn't work, and kind of engage their maybe supervision to get them their buy-in as well. And usually that usually solves it. I haven't really got to that point yet, but that's what my plan of attack would be if I wasn't having success using my normal methods.
So that's sounding to me a little inefficient. Do you agree? Kind of like I'd have to drive to a different location to get my needs met to finally get this thing done. So I'm kind of hearing that it's not a personal, it's not an employee, it's more of a systemic issue of why aren't we speaking the same language? Why aren't we prioritizing similarly? And what-
Yeah, that's part of the issue is because there's no overriding like list of priorities what is most important to the company. And I feel like if somebody would say certain things are more important than others, then it'd be able to help us all focus on one activity and get things done efficiently rather than all the inefficiency that we currently have.
Well, and company process does have a lot to do with it. If you have a company that doesn't have an escalation process for problem accounts, or this is kind of the way that we see best practices. This is how it works. But also, like, just thinking about frequency, like what percentage of the time are you dealing via email versus phone call versus this is so critical that I would have to drive down and beat on their door? Was that kind of an expository remark, or was that a real thing that you actually face?
I haven't actually had to drive anywhere yet to get somebody's buy-in. Like usually it's usually pretty they're pretty responsive to get the work done. It's just that some projects seem to languish more than others. And I think that's part of like the different types of work that is involved. Sometimes we're kind of like working on two different things at different times. Getting more customers, like that's kind of like sales versus maintenance, which is kind of not as important because that's not bringing in new work and new revenue. So it just depends on what type of work it is and how people view that as a priority.
Right. And that's incredibly important, is building shared vision. No matter what you're doing, building shared vision, you kind of have the same starting place, the milestones along the way, and you agree on what the finish line is. I think where a lot of external or remote communication breaks down is that not everyone is on the bus to begin with. So, getting the people on the bus that are supposed to be on the bus, getting them to agree to, yeah, this is what we're doing, this is the timeline we're agreeing to, and go. And that all the roles are taken care of. So, yeah, I'm really interested in the kind of the emotional toll of having to work with so many different people and having conflicting priorities and handling the stress factor of it all.
It can be kind of stressful at times when you're faced with your own deadlines and you can't get buy-in from other customers. But I feel like if you're proactive and you kind of plan your projects out, you can usually meet all your commitment dates as long as you're not waiting till last minute to make them happen. It's just since I'm new, I'm kind of like learning what is the most optimal way to get things done. So as time goes on, I'll just build those skills, and you'll get better at knowing who does what and who will support you and how to get things done efficiently rather than just trusting a process. Because a lot of times, like, we'll throw something in the process and we think, oh, that process is going to handle it, but usually you have to babysit every little thing and you have to follow up like every day. Otherwise somebody gets distracted by some other project and you get put in the back burner, so you got to constantly like chase after it.
Yeah, it's that squirrel mentality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sounding a bit competitive in some ways. There's really a lot. You have to make a lot of noise to make sure that you stay on track and get noticed.
Yeah, I could see where that's a good term for that. I could see that definitely.
Yeah, because we only have so many hours in the workday, and everybody has different conflicting goals and what they want visualize seeing happening and all of that. So when somebody's working on something else and then you pipe in with what you need, it can get overwhelming. And Christine, from a psychological perspective, what are some good ways to deal with that overwhelm?
Well, actually, Jeff had some really good points already. Preparation's everything, right? So if you don't have a plan, you're going to be more apt to feel stressed. You're going to have a lot more crisis mentality, which is I have to get this done right now. Everything becomes an emergency. What happens when we have a bunch of emergencies? Like you said, things fall through the cracks. We want to blame other people. All of the emotional upheaval starts to have, and we're really just kind of not on top of it. So, as he mentioned before, if you have the opportunity, kind of map out what's in front of you, prioritize, have some kind of list with columns of I followed up on this day with this person, move on to the next, and do it again until your needs get met. But at least there's some kind of documentation. So especially in the work environment, right, we don't want to shoot from the hip much because our jobs could be on the line, our careers, and sometimes it's a me versus you situation, right? Like, well, I don't remember Jeff sending that, but if Jeff has it written down, like, actually, I've written down the 3 times that I followed up and I haven't heard back. Right? That starts to really pique some questions.
Exactly. And I'm curious, Jeff, does your company use any sort of project management system or anything to track these conversations?
No, not really. And that's kind of what I learned from my previous job is they were pretty good at doing things like that. So I'm trying to bring that into the new company. It can be simple as like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You just have your project listed, what your next action is going to be, who owns it, and when you expect it to be due. And then a lot of times I'll have the next action on there, give that person a heads up ahead of time before that first action is done, so they can expect some other work coming from me. I'm gonna need their support, so they're not caught blindsided. So then, as that person completes the first action, that goes off to the second action and continues on.
Yeah, you can do it down and dirty in Google Drive like that. You can use a system like Basecamp or Redbooth or something along those lines. You can go as simple or as big as you want. A piece of paper is good. The idea would be to have visibility on it for the people who have the action item. So to have accountability. So it's great that you're bringing over those systems from your other company because proper project management and task assignments and things like that can really keep a company moving and moving quickly, but also prepared to pivot if need be. And that's sometimes when people aren't responding, it's because there is a need for a pivot, but they don't know how to bring it up. So it's a conflict.
Absolutely.
It's a conflict issue where I'm actually working on this thing over here. My engineer, consultant, whoever is asking for this over there, but the two conflict and I need to talk to somebody else. So what people tend to do in times of conflict and uncertainty is they clam up.
Yeah.
And then without the question of, well, is this still a priority?
Right.
Reassuring that you're on their side, all of this. I think that and I think we're shifting out of it, but there has been in past years a very competitive versus collaborative
Mm-hmm.
culture in companies where my neck's on the line, so I'm going to try this, and your neck's on the line, so you're going to try this. And it ends up being not only competitive, but combative.
I was thinking the exact same thing, actually. I was going, ooh, from what Jeff was saying, it was like the minute competition comes up and we have to all fight for our needs to get met, that's a clear indication that there's a communication breakdown, there's a priorities breakdown, we're not being a team. So in like what you're saying, in a great atmosphere where the work culture is supportive, it's like, Jeff, what you're asking for might take me 3 minutes. Let me knock that out really quick, and then you're done. And then what I'm doing, and later I'm going to come back and ask you to do the same thing. But like you're talking about that collaboration where it's, you know what, I have other things to do right now. I'll get it done by the end of today or by first thing tomorrow. But having some kind of answer, some kind of definitive of like, you're important, I'm important, let's work together, instead of like, hey, I have to drive to a different location to stand in front of your desk and be like, what's it going to take to get this done?
Exactly.
So that's part of the work culture, but that also can increase the frustration if it's not done well, and your ultimate work-life balance if it is work done, if it is well done, right? So
Right. And also, when cultures where competition is high, it installs some really bad habits that
Yeah.
stick.
Yeah.
They really stick. And I can actually feel it in my body when I'm feeling that competitive fight to win, must be the best, this has got to be perfect kind of thing. It wells up, and I can actually feel it in my chest.
Mhm.
And then my talking goes a little faster. I can sense it in my clients too, because they speak faster, and everything becomes a little bit more scattered, a little bit more rushed. So that might be an indicator as you're working with people, Jeff, that they are facing something and it's time to pause and question.
Yeah, and actually the physiological responses that you just talked about, that's a stress response.
Mhm.
So that's an increase of cortisol. Cortisol, we don't want a lot of cortisol. Cortisol isn't our happy place. So when competition isn't met in a healthy way, because healthy competition is wonderful. Like, Jeff, I'm rooting for you. I want to do your best. And when we have proper management and people in place that are really looking at their employees' strengths, it's like, wow, you have some really good stuff to bring from your last job. Why don't we try it over here? That would be collaborative. But a lot of companies are like, your last job never happened. Don't mention it. Don't bring anything from there. And we do it our way, right? Which can create that like, well, I have a more efficient way, and I already have things that I know work. But when we're closed-minded and kind of in that ego place, right, it's like it's threatening.
Yeah, it's incredibly threatening. So, does any of this resonate with you, Jeff? Are you thinking about scenarios that you've been through and going, "Oh, that."
Yeah, I definitely see some scenarios that Christine touched on, or we do it this way, and well, your idea is probably good. We're probably not going to do that way, just because you're new, and maybe I don't know. It's tough to I don't know say somebody is doing something. You don't want to say they're doing it wrong, but if you say you have a correction that you could suggest to them, you kind of want to make them think that they came up with the idea rather than just saying this is probably the way you should be doing it, because I feel like people are more receptive to that when they think it's their idea rather than you telling them how to do something.
Well, it's in a way of framing it as well. So, if I could show you a way to make project communication in our company more efficient so we spend less time getting projects done and increase revenue, would you be interested?
Yeah.
I
And
like
then
the way
just hang it.
I like the way you said that.
Yeah.
I'll probably have to use that one.
Yeah, so
Plant the seed and walk away.
well, it's like springing something on someone that they didn't ask for. I think that's called codependency and fixing. But it's when you spring something on someone and they didn't ask for it, there's an attack response that happens in them as well. So when you pose it and as a consultant, we call it discovery.
Mhm.
So we ask discovery questions. Your discovery question is, are you even interested in this?
Yeah.
I like the way you said that because I feel like the way if you say it directly, it's kind of like they're getting on the defensive
Yep.
rather than when they're questioning you. That's kind of like they're opening up to suggestions. Kind of they
Right.
come there on their own terms rather than you coming to them.
Right, exactly, exactly. And you can approach anyone with that when you need something from them is, I need, and there's a format for it and says, if I could fill in the blank here and save you whatever it is, would you be interested? And that applies to anytime you're trying to jumpstart a conversation that's going to lead to change, having the yes be delivered.
Absolutely.
It becomes a conversation of consent at that point
Mhm.
versus we're having this conversation now.
Yeah.
I'm really frustrated because I can't get a hold of so and so in the Carolinas and it's 3 hours difference and I can't understand their accent. Well, no, you could, but
Sometimes.
but you know what I mean? Having all that stress behind it
Mhm.
versus a structure. So structure can alleviate stress.
Absolutely.
Planning, structure, even visualizing the win. So if you're nervous about the conversation, you can sit back in your office and actually see through your own eyes you posing this question to your boss. Champion athletes call it playing the game. So they play the game in their heads and then they go out and they actually play and win the game. So this can be done with critical change management type conversations like that is, okay, this is the question I'm going to ask. I'm going to be prepared to follow up with whatever else information I think they're going to need. And a good holding statement is, I don't know at this time, but I'm very interested. I'll research that and get back to you. Good holding statement. So having a good starting statement, a good holding statement, and of course being prepared to get everything you want out of the conversation too.
Absolutely. And I think for Jeff as well, part of this new perspective, there in older companies that kind of have established employees, there is a threat with new people, and it's pretty normal for things to get squashed pretty quick. But I want you to remember that they hired you for a reason and you bring value. And when you're coming at it with kind of the mentality, the idea of like, this is what they hired me for. Like, this is why I'm here getting paid, because for some reason they saw something in me and kind of now it's my job to perform. And maybe it's just going to take a little preparation for conversation. Like Diana's saying, like, I want to approach this more from the side and not so from the front so that it's received a little bit better. And then I'm going to release any attachment to the outcome. So whether they go with it or don't, it's not like because people have some issues with advice, like if they didn't follow my advice, it wasn't good. And it's, you still want to be the idea guy. Yeah. Even if they don't follow it, because when things get tough, like Diane's saying, there can be critical moments and where they pivot. And I'm guessing they're not going to go to the people that think the same old way about the same old things. They're going to go, I want to kind of run that by Jeff. I'm sure he would have something interesting to say.
Yep. And there's a certain readiness for change as well. And you can kind of spot this. So when you start seeing that your management starts dropping little sayings with dissatisfaction with the status quo, and it may not be, oh, I wish we had a system for this, but it would be, I don't know why that this has taken so long to go from beginning to middle to end. I don't know why it hasn't been tracked. I don't know why, fill in the blank here. When you start hearing those, I don't know why, you have that dissatisfaction that's creeping in that shows a bit of a willingness to change. But the dissatisfaction and the motivation to change and the process to change has to be greater than the resistance.
Absolutely.
And the resistance can come from the individual leader. It can come from the company culture. It can come from the budget and the bottom line. So there's a number of places where resistance can come from. So if you can decrease those resistance creating forces and add to I have a solution for your dissatisfaction with status quo, I am a champion for this. I can cheer this on, provide the motivation, and here are some process ideas, their costs, etc. if it goes that deep.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also, as Christine said, detach from that outcome, because you may just plant a seed and something might happen later on, or they might just grab onto it. So that is very important. So we just have a few minutes left. What are your major takeaways from this conversation, Jeff?
I like what Christine said about being the ideas guy, and that if they're ready for a new idea, they'll come to you when they need it. But they might not necessarily always want your ideas. Just do your best and accept that you can't run the whole company yourself. So you just do what you can do, and some of your ideas will get accepted, some won't. And as long as you just do your best, then don't worry about it. If they don't take all your ideas.
Exactly. And knowing that if you have to get something done, whether it's inside or outside the company, that you're all on the same team. If you find a central why, whether that's being customer centric or whether that's being culture centric or what that big why is, you're going to have so much more success than not having that lighthouse, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And teamwork. Beat the team. You can start that culture yourself. Be the helpful guy. Hey, you seem overwhelmed. I can help. And later, I have a project too. Would you help me with that? Like, it's so in your personality too that it'll be easy for you. But you're that guy, you know. I'm the idea guy. I'm the helpful guy. I'm
Thanks.
Yeah.
Exactly. So thank you so much for coming on the air with us. It was absolutely great to speak with you, and good luck in your new position.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for inviting me. This is a good time.
Awesome.
This has been Business Therapy with Diane Dye Hansen and Christine Salvo. Have a great morning.
Bye-bye.